Hi guys! Mercury retrograde is upon us. It is harvest season though, so this is good news. This is a blessing in disguise, I promise you. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way, but I can assure you this is good news. So, if you're new to this channel, I do 3 card pull readings before I start my video just to kind of confirm the energy and get like any clarification on anything that we're like covering in today's videos. So, keep that in mind. I do not hand pull these cards. These are randomly selected and they always vibe with the video, so it's just a confirmation. So the first card that I pulled was definitely the Hanged Man. Very interesting because when we're facing our karmic, when we're facing our shadow, there's a lot of things that we feel kind of stuck on and confronted with, of course, and there's nothing that we can do to really avoid the situation. I really believe that the Hanged Man is a very good representation of that because, when you're stuck hanging, you're stuck hanging, right? And it feels like there's nowhere else to go. But with that being said, it's more so of us just facing the things we don't normally want to face. We kind of create distractions for ourselves so we don't have to like sit there and dwell in the things that we already know and don't feel like capable of overcoming, but that is not necessarily true, and that's what the universe is trying to show us. So I promise you, the earthly power is there. You've gone through a lot of shadow work, you've gone through a lot of karmic situations, and you know how to handle this stuff better. So give yourself some credit because you do have this earthly power. The intuition is there. You gotta vibe with facing some of these situations. I'm not saying that you don't face them. I'm just saying like sometimes we gotta do things that are outside of our comfort zone and learn from things a little bit on a faster pace so we don't have to continue repeating cycles because that stuff is much, much more frustrating than ourselves, I promise. But they go hand in hand. So the shortened force, I don't know. Shortened force was the last card that I pulled. So definitely it's giving you a good indication that if you go through with some of what we're going to talk about today, you'll have a lot more shortened force. You won't feel so restrained. You won't feel so conflicted about these situations. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into it. Let's talk about dream interpretation and shadow work because they really go hand in hand. I've mentioned them before, and I have a couple other videos. Hopefully I'll leave them in the description box below. Hopefully they'll be really easy to find on your own. But anyway, there's this secret portal that we enter in our minds when we go to sleep, especially deep REM sleep. Like if you ever listen to theta waves, I'm a big supporter of theta waves and just frequency music and just meditation in general because it allows you to kind of go deeper inside of yourself and kind of understand some of the thoughts that you have that are reoccurring, especially. And it allows you to really kind of break things down and get some more clarity on like why you make certain choices or why you behave the way that you do and react and respond to certain situations. So with that being said, like lucid dreaming is a really great one. Getting into that really deep sleep where you're like almost like inside of a different world. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Like when we get really deep into our dream state, we almost seem to kind of just float into a different world, and it becomes so real and so vivid, and it's almost, I don't know if you've ever felt this, but I have definitely felt this in my past. Like I have like looked at my arms in a dream and literally saw chills and like hair sticking up, and if and it's like you could literally touch your skin. It's a really euphoric, crazy feeling, but it says a lot about our dream state and its purpose. And when we really get into journaling, talk about that all the time. When we really get into like diving into what some of these meanings are and where we are in our dreams, the people that we're facing, and the circumstances, when we start journaling these things down, especially right after sleep, we can get a little bit more of an idea of like why we're having these certain dreams, especially reoccurring dreams. I don't know if you've ever had reoccurring dreams, but I personally have had some nightmares that just like kept happening, and maybe like some of the situations were a little bit different, but it really had the same pattern. It had had the same theme. So it's something to really consider and think about, like why am I having these reoccurring themes in my dream state and in my real world? Like it's you can put the two together, but sometimes it takes a little bit of extra work and extra steps to understand because really from my belief, is your subconscious is doing all the magic work in your dream state and your thinking process, especially your meditation as well, because there's something that you're not able to really access easier because there's these darker elements of like our mind and human nature. So it's almost like it's a little bit difficult to unlock those parts just on our own. So we have to take a couple extra steps, like through journaling, meditation, interpretation through other people, and understanding what other people are going through in their circumstances too, and trying to mirror that into your own concepts and your own reality. So just it's not a there's not a there's not a I guess a magic key for this lock in our mind, but it allows us to kind of like, it's almost like when you have this peak when you're like trying psychedelics like DMT or acid or whatever, and you have like this peak moment where you're going to get the answers to the universe, and then the door closes on you. Yeah, it's exactly like that, but we can actually take a little bit step back trying to figure out the illusions of the universe, and we can just kind of take it into our own life, our own immediate life, like our relationships, our friendships, um, health, mental health, physical health, any of those things. If there are like some things that you are struggling with facing in your reality, these things can happen in your dream state, and then maybe a little bit metaphoric. Like we could be facing some demons dressed as other people who may actually have a little bit more to do so with their own personal demons, and sometimes it's just easier to see this from an outside perspective than it is from our own inner perspective, because we tend to judge others more than we judge ourselves. It's human nature, but not always. But it's something that you have to understand, is that you can't face everything all at once, and so your dreams are really a big wide open door. You just have to choose. You have to make that decision to go in and go a little bit deeper. So when you actually open that, you can remember a lot of your dreams. I found this myself. Like when I started going into meditation and theta waves, frequency music when I sleep. Like when I go to sleep, I listen to theta waves. Like whatever the intention is, if I want to have some lucid dreams, if I want to go visit somebody else in their dreams, if I want to kind of like call in abundance for myself or love, relationships, sort of that sort of thing. Like I'll listen to that sort of intention. Maybe I'll write it down on a piece of paper in my journal or something, and then that will allow me to get into this deeper state of sleep. And it sounds a little funky, it sounds a little weird at first, but it's really possible. And you can, there's lots of studies on this, like uh you know do your own research. But if you're really wanting to dive deep into it, like I really recommend setting an intention before you go to sleep, like journaling, writing it down. Having that journal right next to you when you sleep will be really great too, because sometimes we wake up in the middle of the night like from either a nightmare or just like a really strange dream, and we just almost like go back to sleep, and then you're in a different dream, or you can sometimes you go back into that one. It really depends. But it's just nice to have your journal right next to you, just in case, because we tend to forget a lot of our dreams, because there's these like significant moments that are very important, and they are usually a little easier to remember. Like sometimes I can remember dreams from like when I was a little kid, but for the most part, most of that stuff just gets lost in the abyss. So if you're wanting to keep it in in a journal for your shadow work, it won't necessarily allow you to break everything down. That's not the purpose, is just journaling things down like as soon as you go to sleep and trying to figure out what that meant. Like that's not what I'm saying, but like when you journal it down and you can come back to it on a piece of paper and understand it, like maybe you might have a different perspective from a situation that you go through in the universe. So like maybe it wasn't exactly a message for like right now, but maybe in the future you can go back and read on it and maybe understand that message a little bit better, a little bit more clear. But it really depends, because there's so many different things that we can face when we're going through our dream state. So it depends on the shadow work that you're trying to either intentionally do, or the shadow work that the universe is trying to encourage you to do. So it kind of depends situation to situation. But these are like my number one tips for like really getting into journaling and deciphering your dreams, breaking your dreams down, write it down. Write everything down as much as you can remember, because maybe you'll be able to remember it like right when you wake up, but like you go and have like a cup of coffee or something and do all these other things in the real world, and this so distractions start to like wreak havoc on you, and then you just completely forget what you were dreaming about, and it kind of like it really doesn't allow you to sit with what the message was. So definitely want to kind of journal as soon as you possibly can, like when you wake up. Like, it's just nice to have a journal next to you when you're sleeping anyway, because there's things that we think about in the middle of the night. Like, I don't know if you're one of those type of people, like the overthinkers, like me, where you're just sitting in your bed constantly concerned about what's going to happen. No, I used to be that way, but I'm not that way anymore, I promise. It took some work. But you know what I mean? Like we tend to do a lot more thinking in our bed than we do out in the regular world, because in the regular world we're distracted by everything, but when we're in our bed, we're in our comfort zone. We tend to kind of like think about the things that we need to do the next day. We get a little angsty, want to get up and go and do some chores or do some things that we need to, or we just want to sink in that bed and never wake up again. That happens too. But you know, it's really nice to be able to do shadow work when you're dreaming, because that's going to eliminate having to repeat cycles. I know it sounds crazy, but you won't have to face so many cycles in the regular world. I mean, yeah, you should experience life for sure, but like some things that we can really face when we're dreaming, we can understand ourselves on a deeper level without having to go through all the trauma and experience to learn the message. We can do that in our own bed. That's basically what I'm trying to tell you. Like, you don't have to struggle to learn. There are ways to learn without struggling. You just have to make the steps. You have to have the audacity. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of why we're going to be journaling in the first place with our dreams, because it may seem a little strange at first. Like, why would I want to like write down this poodle that was like eating my cheeseburger on this like workbench while I was trying to make this beautiful bracelet, and then he ran off with it. That didn't actually happen, I promise. But like, sometimes these dreams have a little bit of a deeper meaning. Sometimes they're silly, sometimes they don't have like a whole lot of point and purpose, but for the most part, if you set the actual intention, you can see the magic happen yourself. Like, you, especially with lucid dreaming, I really recommend lucid dreaming. Just keep in mind that you can do this without any type of like melatonin. You don't need any of that sort of thing. You don't need any fancy tea. You don't need psychedelics. You can just do this with setting an intention. So listen to some deep frequency music. That will usually trick your brain into going into REM sleep a little bit faster. And then you can kind of like decide what type of dream that you want to have. Like, if you want to do some shadow work, set the intention, write it down on your journal, and then set the theta waves and just let yourself go to sleep. And usually it helps if you're kind of by yourself in your own bed, or if you're in a meditative state somewhere else, like outside taking a nap, or just just in your own like element where you're not getting distracted by other people and things like that. So that really helps. And just going into the, you know, I'm going to keep saying it, but the intention to really face some of these things, because you're going to really crack into some of this stuff, especially if you're doing this for the first time. So it may be a little bit traumatic at first, forewarning, because you will have some really deep inner dreams, like that will like kind of slap you in the face sometimes. So just be aware of that. Like, be ready to face some of this deep trauma healing if that's what you're setting the intention for. And if you're doing it for other reasons, you just want to do a little bit of shadow work, kind of work on some inner balance or things like that. Like, those things are really simple too. So this is just a warning. If you're really trying to face some trauma and create some more stability in your mental space, just kind of keep in mind that you can actually have some really deep nightmares when you're doing this sort of thing. So just be prepared, mentally prepared. Don't psych yourself out though. Don't overthink it and create this dilemma where you're intentionally making yourself have nightmares. but be prepared for that sort of thing. So have some water next to your bed, have your journal, have a stuffed animal. I don't know if you can see all these, but I'm like 28 years old. I have a billion stuffed animals. That's never gonna happen. I mean, and that's never gonna change. They're there. Those are new. Um, so, have something to hug. Even your partner, your spouse, like allow yourself to be able to have, this escape whenever you're waking up. Because if you're just, forcing yourself to face trauma when you sleep, it can become a little bit anxious and make you not want to go to bed, and it can create some sleeping problems. It can create some dilemmas that you weren't wanting to create. So don't psych yourself out and make yourself stressed or worried about like what the dream is. Just kind of try to let it happen. I know that's not really, it's easier said than done, especially when we have some deep inner core wounds to face. Like sometimes it can be really hard. So maybe even having, like, if you have a therapist or a counselor or something like that, talk with them and let them know that, hey, I saw this thing. I saw this little cute white girl on YouTube, and she was telling me about all these dream things that I can do, and I'm gonna set some intentions before I go to sleep so I can do some shadow work. Like, communicate with your partners, communicate with somebody that you're close with, and have the capability of sharing these sort of things, these trauma healings with. So, allow yourself to have that safe space to come back to after you're dreaming, because I'm telling you, I'm forewarning, some of these dreams can be really deep and heavy. So, keep that in mind when you're doing this sort of thing, but allow yourself to experience it. Allow yourself to understand it better, because it is a dream. At the end of the day, it's just a dream. I know some of these things can be really real. They can be very vivid. So, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's valid. Just allow yourself to experience it, and then know that you will wake up and you will be in a safe space. So, that is another really big one to keep in mind. So, what are some of these things that we can really face? It seems like there's some things that maybe we would never be able to face in our reality, and some of those things can actually really be understood better when we allow ourselves to. So, facing these things will be the first and major step in your transition. So, if you're wanting to heal things, you have to understand them better, and allowing yourself and setting that intention really when you sleep is a very big step in healing, period, because you're allowing yourself the space and the freedom to feel and re-experience things that you have experienced before and didn't want to re-experience. You know what I mean? So like when you're intentionally allowing yourself to be okay with the situation, then the situation will allow itself to be okay with you. So it's like a mirror effect. Like you will have some, you will have some, probably some traumatic experiences when you're sleeping at first, but eventually you'll become much, much more okay with the message and understanding like why that was so vivid and so real in the first place. So, you know, allow yourself and give yourself credit for wanting to re-experience those things, because it's not something that we really feel like we need to do all the time. um Especially when we're already facing so many things else in the real world. Like it why would we want to face more problems when we sleep? Like, I'm trying to relax here, okay? Like, but when you're letting yourself be okay with that and giving yourself the freedom to re-experience it, it's going to ease itself out, and it may actually be the part that you were missing in the first place, because you are one biggest message here is you're allowing yourself to experience that. You're being okay with that experience. That says a lot. It really does. So just allow yourself time to heal these things too. Don't expect it to happen overnight, because that's not how we're facing our shadow when we sleep. It's really about getting the message. It's really about understanding the message and receiving it and writing it down, or just, sitting with it, meditating after you wake up is a good one too, if you're not really into like writing things down all the time. Like you can sit there and meditate when you wake up. Like, don't do anything. I know you want to do your morning routine, especially if you're a morning person. You want to go and make your coffee and brush your teeth and do all those sort of things. I hope you brush your teeth in the morning. Just kidding. But seriously, like, just sit in your bed and meditate on it. Think about what you just experienced and try to let yourself remember it, because sometimes you can't actually hold on to that dream if you're sitting there in the bed and you're just like, whoa, that was a really crazy one. Why did that poodle steal my sandwich? Like, son of a. I'm gonna have to get that sandwich back one of these days. But seriously, like, just know that there are these things that you have to make steps in order to get to this actual healing process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's more about the message, not the not necessarily just the healing. It's about understanding the message, because when we're just think about it this way, when we're going into a dream state and we're allowing yourself to have this whole lifespan in front of us while we're sleeping, there's a lot we can actually recover from and uncover in our dream state versus the real world, because the real world, it takes, like, time goes a lot slower in the regular world than it does in dreams. I don't know, for the most part. So, like, know that it's going to take some time to understand these messages. It's the process that we're going through. It's nothing happens overnight. Sometimes it does, don't get me wrong, but it's not really what we're trying to face. We're not trying to just like heal through energy work in our dream. It's about understanding, deep understanding. So when you understand that, then the process will become a little bit easier to go through and re-experience. So understanding, giving yourself the freedom, the free space, the free time to really go through and re-experience things, or just experience new things and try to understand the metaphors, because when we get into the metaphors of dreams, it becomes a little bit more complicated and a little bit harder to understand, because your dream state's not going to be like the universe doesn't put you through these images and these ideas and these concepts to just traumatize you. That's not the purpose of going through it. It's trying to teach you a lesson. And I know that sounds harsh too, but it's really about the learning process. It's not about the end, it's not about the beginning, it's about the process. So give yourself time to heal in the regular world and in the dream world. So, being patient with yourself is the biggest key here. Being patient with yourself with anything, obviously, is a very big thing to hold on to, but like, know that nothing happens over time, and knowing that it will happen over time. So knowing that it's not going to happen overnight, but that it could and that it can. So basically what I'm saying is, it may not be the results that you're looking for right away, but over time, you'll start to understand better why it happened and why the metaphors came in the way it did, to either ease you into a message, help you to break some of the communication barriers down, or just to maybe make you go on a really crazy acid trip in your dreams. I don't know. But it really, like I say, it depends on situation and dream states. So now, going into dream interpretation, some of the deeper messages can be really, really almost more traumatizing than the experience itself. So keep that in mind too. Like, sometimes the universe has us face things in our dream, because it's almost not necessarily easier to face them while we're sleeping, but we can heal from it easier, because when we wake up and we're past the adrenaline rush. I don't know if you have ever had like a nightmare like that, like an adrenaline rush when you wake up is super intense. Like, you're sweating, you need water. Speaking of, drink some water. And it's like your body temperature is raises. Like, you get overheated in your sleep because you're like almost having a panic attack in your sleep. So, I'm not saying that these things are going to be magical or euphoric in any way. So keep that in mind as well. It can be really, really deep, and it can really trigger some of these things, and trigger like the flight or fight response when you wake up. So just be okay. And if you're trying to do this thing again, like bring a partner, bring somebody that you trust and love into your energy space, and let them know like, hey, I'm setting this intention. I'm going to do this like um, dream interpretation thing so I can face some of my shadow and my trauma healing, and let them know like, hey, I might need you for a safe space, somebody to talk to, and kind of release some of these emotions on. So one, you're not projecting onto other people all of your problems or whatever, but you're allowing yourself to communicate this healthy and have a safe space at the same time. So that can be a really good one, especially if you're kind of like, again, not really into the whole journaling aspect. You can communicate this stuff to other people, and then maybe they have the other end of the message for you. Sometimes that works out in the universe too. Sometimes when you're communicating to a specific person, something that you experienced or a dream, sometimes they've went through something very similar. Most of the time they have, and it's something that you can kind of communicate with them, and then that will open up a lot of more doors for you too. So it's just something to also think about, is bringing other people involved into your dreams, and allowing them to kind of either help you in the lucid state, because you can. Sounds crazy, I know, but you can visit other people in their dreams. I've done it before. People have done it with me and to me. It depends on the energy space, it depends on the karma and your involvement. So, I am actually reaching the limits of this video, so I will get into this deeper on my next one. I hope today's message really resonates for you. If you have any questions, any comments, you want me to cover anything about dream interpretation, please leave them in the comments down below. And do not forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And have a blessed retrograde, because we are in harvest season. We just had the harvest full moon. You are going to be okay. I love you. Bye.